guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Michelle Saga and I am the crafty chick behind Shell's Beads. So today we have the final part 2 of our 3D pumpkin patch tumbler that we created in the last video, and I cannot wait to show you the reveal of this project. So before we get started on anything else, I have got to show you what this mug looks like completely finished with all of these beautiful pumpkins around it. So obviously you can see that we've got paint on this, we've got resin, we've got glitter, so we've got the whole 9 yards. So that's what we will be doing today. I will be showing you how to bring this look together and finalize all of those beautiful pumpkins that you sculpted in the first video. So I hope you guys have fun today. I cannot wait to see what you guys create with this technique. Make sure that you guys subscribe to my channel so that you never miss a video. Hit that bell button and like and comment. I'm super active in the comments and I love to hear from you guys. So if you guys are ready to finish this cup up, let's get started. So to get started, we're going to take the cup with the pumpkins on it from the last video and we are going to bake it in our toaster oven or household oven at 250 degrees for 17 minutes. Make sure to let the cup cool inside of the toaster oven and then we can remove it and move on to the painting. To get set up for painting, you're going to lay your Sculpted mat down. I will have that listed and linked in the description box below. And you're going to want to take your favorite black base paint. In my case, mine is a multi-surface paint from Deco Art called Black Tie. And we're going to take a nice soft flat brush and we are going to base paint this all in black, including our pumpkins. I lay it down in nice even brush strokes and make sure that you get into all of those nooks and crannies. You just want to make sure that the paint is getting down inside because this black will end up being, or show through, I should say, through the next layers of paint that you add. Once you've base painted everything and let it dry, we are going to move on to painting it with yet another black. Once you have finished that first coat and let it dry, move into this second black. For this, I am using Effects Acrylic Paint. I got this at Hobby Lobby and I will have it listed and linked below. This is a flexible acrylic paint that's meant to paint like cosplay type costumes, and it is absolutely the perfect paint for coating a tumbler. It has almost self-leveling properties, which almost eliminate all of the brush stroke marks that you make, and I really liked it for this application. As you can see here, I'm going around the whole cup, but I am avoiding most of the pumpkins because I don't need this harsh black color on the pumpkins as we will be painting over them with another color. Make sure that you get your handle and then we are ready to move on to the next step. Now we're ready to get to the detail painting. I'm using 3 fine liner brushes. I have 2 3/0s, one is longer than the other, and a 2/0. The 2/0 is the thickest of the 3, and I will be using that for most of it, but in the instance where I need to get into a little detail, I will be breaking out that longer 3/0 brush. The colors we were going to be using today are my favorite Canyon Orange from Americana, Lime Green Metallic from Anita's, and I will also be using some golden iridescent fine high flow acrylic. I use this high flow acrylic paint as a mixative as well as a solid paint itself. And like you've seen me do before, I like to just use my Sculpted mat as my palette, and that is where I will be laying my paint out. So give that gold paint a really good shake because it does have mica particles in it, which tend to settle at the bottom. I will be adding that to my orange so that my orange paint has a slight shine to it. And then I'll be putting a little bit dab of it on the actual palette because that's what we are going to be using for our stems. As soon as we have that paint ready, we are going to move into the first detail. The first detail I will be working on are the stems of the pumpkins, which will be that gold. As you can see here, I'm just lightly brushing the brush over it and I'm not trying to work it in to the details. I'm just trying to brush over the raised areas so that we almost kind of do like a gilded highlight version of painting. We want all of those black base details to remain noticeable. So we're just going to come in and brush this gold over. If you noticed, I barely put any paint on my palette because you really don't need a lot. You want to almost dry brush this on. Keep moving around the cup, painting all of the stems. And when we are done with that, we're going to move into the leaves and vines. Now we are ready to start painting the leaves and vines. Those will be done out of the lime green metallic paint that we have on our palette. And just mix it around a little bit. I think I dumped these paint colors out a little prematurely and it was starting to film over. So just keep that in mind when you are putting your paint out. Maybe don't do it quite so soon and just kind of put it out as you go along. Looking for all of those vines that we added to our pumpkins and our leaves, we are going to do the same dry brushing kind of technique where we just add a little bit of paint to our brush and use it to coat the surface of the element that we are painting. This does not have to be perfect because we are looking to keep a lot of those black details, but we definitely do want to go with the contour of the shape. Keep in mind, if you have to come back in later because you got a little paint on your cup, you can always go back with a little bit of that black and touch it up using one of these fine liner brushes. After we get done with all of our vines, we will move into painting our pumpkins. I wanted to show you how you can also fix a quick mistake. I have these little tiny cotton swabs that I use for cleaning my airbrush, and I run these along any detailed areas to clean up any of paint that I don't want on my thing. As you can see here, I'm just going to continue working on these vines and we'll be ready to start pumpkins. Now that we have all of our vines and stems done, we are going to move into the pumpkins. For this, I'm going to switch to my thicker 2/0 brush because we want a little bit more surface area to dry brush the paint onto the pumpkins. I am going to also make sure that most of this paint is off by tapping it down on my Silpat mat. And then I want to run it very, very lightly over the pumpkins. I started out vertically, but quickly realized that a horizontal pull across this ended up doing a much better job at picking up all of that fine detail. And I'm just lightly going over this. As you can see, all of those hollowed out areas that we created do remain black and give us that really spooky look that we are going for. Because this paint is just a little bit translucent, you can really pick up that dark detail, and it adds to the spooky feel of this cup. We're going to continue painting these pumpkins until we have them coated the way that we would like. Keeping in mind, I did go out of frame here, guys, but you want to get along the bottom there like you see me doing here and around the sides, because we really want the idea that this is a pumpkin attached and not just some painted on element. I will go ahead and continue with the rest of these pumpkins, and then we will be ready to get some resin on. Now that our paint has dried, we are ready to move on to adding epoxy. I just wanted to show you my setup really quick. I have my mug mounted on a Bowen cup turner, and I do have a blank arm that I have foam mounted, and that device you see in the top left hand corner is my mug counterweight. This helps to keep everything balanced and not make it do a skip when the bulk of the weight of the cup turns. I did have to adjust the weights out. I'm only using 3 of the 4 weights. Now I'm going to come in and level my cup and just make sure that it is level. As you can see, it was a little off. So I just tilt it in the direction it needs to be in order to get that level perfect. From there, we're going to move into adding our 30 milliliters of Tumbler coating epoxy from the epoxy resin store. And it's a little cumbersome at first to add the epoxy because you're going to want to get it into all of the nooks and crannies of the pumpkins. The turner is going to move a little faster than you can do this, so just realize you're going to have to make a few passes on this in order to make it work. Alternatively, you could also go in with a little silicone tool, and which you will see me do a little bit later in the video, and you could also start to add epoxy that way. I also kind of had the idea while I was filming this that I loved the matte look of these pumpkins, and I am going to try to find a way to make sure that we get epoxy all over the next cup I do like this and see if we can leave those pumpkins the way they are. But for this video, we are going to be coating everything in a layer of epoxy. I try to get it as smooth as possible, and I am avoiding the very bottom as we will not be coating that with anything. So as you can see here, I get my finger up into those little grooves between the pumpkins, making sure that epoxy seeps down in there. You see me coating the tops of the pumpkins, and we just want to do this until we have a good layer on our cup. Once we have all of the epoxy applied, we are going to let it level for a few minutes and move on to the next step. Here's where I get my silicone tool out, which is just a silicone eyeshadow brush. And I want to get into all of those little nooks and crannies that my gloved finger could not get into. I load the silicone brush with just a little bit of epoxy, and as you can see, I'm really working it down into those deep grooves and also removing any epoxy that I don't need or shifting it around to areas that needed it a little more. As you can see, I scooped out from that hole in his mouth. And it's just because we don't want globs of epoxy everywhere, and we will be needing to add more layers of epoxy to this cup. Now I'm going to move into our glitter accents. You know that I had to add some bling to this cup, so we're going in with Witchy Woman from Chase Ray Glitters, and I'm just taking my finger and directly out of the bag, I'm pinching this glitter and sprinkling it along the very bottom rim and the very top rim of the cup. I would say I probably go up about 1/2 inch or so. I definitely want to avoid getting the glitter on these pumpkins, but I do want to make sure that we add enough bling to make it stand out. add glitter to your top rim, let this sit for 4 to 6 hours, and move into a second coat of epoxy. After 2 coats of epoxy, this cup needed 1 more cup before I felt comfortable with moving on to the sanding process. So that is what you see me doing here. In the next stage, we will be sanding down just the very top and bottom rim of this cup, just so that we have a nice smooth finish for our final coats of epoxy. Now we're going to sand the top and bottom rim of the cup. Then we're going to wash the cup with Dawn dish soap, thoroughly let it dry, and apply our final coat of epoxy. Once that final coat has cured, your cup is ready to use. I had so much fun teaching you guys the skills that you need to make this cup. I love taking something that you wouldn't think would go with tumblers and putting it together like polymer clay. And a huge shout out again to Rachel Tinsel of the Creative Siren for all of the courage that I needed to go ahead and combine these 2 skills. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that bell button so you never miss a minute of the fun. And if you missed part 1, you can find the video right here. Thank you, guys, and until next time, stay creative.